Right then, guys, back for part 2 of my Highway 61 Revisited response. Yeah, I just had to cut the video there because it was going to be way longer than 15 minutes. I just, I know I'm babbling on here, but I just have so much to say about this album. So I'll quickly move things on to the next 2 questions, which were favourite songs and least favourite songs. And, I don't normally like to pick out favourites of my favourite Dylan albums, because I like to admire them as a collection of songs, as a whole album, I guess. But of course, like everyone, I do have my favourites. And on this specific album, without a shadow of a doubt, my favourite song is Like a Rolling Stone, by a long way as well. And for me, that song is just set apart from everything Dylan wrote. Throughout his entire career, it's just a completely separate thing. Because it's just, everything seems to come together on that song. Everything he'd ever been working towards kind of came together on that one song in that one moment, and he kind of directed all of his focus at one point. And it just ends up as being a very powerful, poignant and moving experience for the listener. And there's many speculations about what that song is about, who it's about. People say it might be about Edie Sedgwick, Andy Warhol, many theories. Some people say it's about himself, and no one really knows. It's very cryptic, but I don't think it matters. You don't need to know who it's about to admire it, and to know what he's talking about. And I actually just wanted to read out something here from Wikipedia on the Like a Rolling Stone page, just kind of explaining how much of a game changer this was, not only for the music industry but also for Dylan himself. Okay, so in the spring of 1965, returning from the tour of England documented in the film Don't Look Back, Dylan was unhappy with the public's expectations of him, as well as the direction his career was going, and seriously considered quitting the music business. In a 1966 interview, he described his satisfaction. Last spring, I guess I was going to quit singing. I was very drained, and the way things were going, it was a very draggy situation. But Like a Rolling Stone changed it all. I mean, it was something that I myself could dig. It's very tiring having other people tell you how much they dig you if you yourself don't dig you. And then again, he described the Like a Rolling Stone in a 1966 interview to a journalist, where he said, "It was 10 pages long, it wasn't called anything, just a rhythm thing on paper. All about my steady hatred directed at some point that was honest. In the end, it wasn't hatred, it was telling someone something they didn't know. Telling them that they were lucky. Revenge, that's a better word. I had never thought of it as a song until one day I was sat at the piano, and on the paper it was singing How Does It Feel? In a slow motion pace, in the utmost of slow motion." I mean, it doesn't get much deeper than that. I mean, that's just really deep stuff, and it displays also how this song kind of saved Dylan's career. I mean, I don't believe that he would have quit the whole industry if he hadn't have written this song, but I do think he might have completely changed his approach, and he might have not written the rest of the songs on this album, or Blonde on Blonde. He might have even taken a break from singing, and we wouldn't have heard Blonde on Blonde, or any of his other albums. So yeah, Like a Rolling Stone is my favourite song on the album. My second favourite song would have to be Desolation Row. Just full to the brim with the most marvellous surreal imagery. I mean, you can just get lost in the words on that song. And some people describe it as kind of an epic farewell to his acoustic roots, the only acoustic song on the album, and kind of giving the fans a slice of what they wanted, but obviously just capping off this incredibly explosive electric album. So yeah, those are my favourite songs. Least favourite songs, I don't really have any. I seriously don't have any gripes really on this album. The only one that slightly gets on my nerves is Highway 61 Revisited. That track, the sounds on that kind of get on my nerves. It's probably my least favourite song on the album, if I'm honest. But it's still, you know, there's still some great lyrics in that song, so I don't really have any ones I dislike. Testament to how great the album is. Okay, next question is the album overrated or underrated? I really just don't think it's either. I mean, certainly don't think it's overrated. I mean, obviously an incredibly influential and inspirational album for many artists. I mean, the Beatles were inspired by this. Rolling Stones, you know, Beach Boys, you name it. They were inspired by this album, and really a game changer for sure. So I don't think it's overrated, and obviously it's getting the recognition it deserves nowadays. People are still playing it and admiring it today in the 21st century. And obviously, I think it was rated number 3 on Rolling Stone's list of greatest albums of all time. So yeah, certainly not overrated, but I don't think it's underrated either. Maybe slightly underrated at the time when it came out. I mean, I think there were people that loved it, but obviously there were also people that hated it and hated the electric music and the direction Dylan was going in. So yeah, that's kind of my response to that question. Question 9, I kind of just answered really in that last answer. Is it an influential album? Was it a music changing album? I pretty much just answered that, but yeah, as I say, pretty much everybody was influenced by this, and yeah, I don't really have much more to say. Okay, so the next question was question 10. Compare and contrast this to other albums, and this has always been the most difficult question to answer on these album discussion threads, and I think the reason is that we are talking about really unique albums here. You know, albums that kind of buck the trend and don't conform to any kind of boundaries, and that makes it very difficult to compare them to anything else. You know, I really just can't think of any other albums to compare this one to. You know, I'd have to just, you know, compare it to the other 2 albums in the Holy Trinity of the mid-60s albums, Blonde on Blonde and Bring It All Back Home. I mean, I think if you compare it to Blonde on Blonde, this album is very different, very different in my opinion. These songs are very in your face, very aggressive. Dylan's very much forcing these songs upon you almost. And when you listen to Blonde on Blonde, you very much, you know, they're very much kind of inviting you to listen to the songs and allowing you to go through the motions and you know, that kind of thing. They're much softer, I think, the songs on Blonde in general. Obviously there are some songs that kind of are a bit different, like Rainy Day Woman. But I think, you know, it's very difficult to compare those 2 albums. I don't think they're very similar at all. When it comes to Bring It All Back Home, I think I think some of the songs on Bring It All Back Home would have fitted quite nicely on this album. I think Subterranean Homesick Blues, because it's so fast and so so rapid in the way Dylan delivers it. I think that would work quite well on Highway 61. I think some of the more epic acoustic songs, such as Gates of Eden and It's Alright Ma, would also fit, you know, quite nicely on this album. But apart from that, again, I think they're quite different. And that's the great thing about how much Dylan changed in such a short period of time, that he could release 3 top quality albums that were all completely different from one another. So yeah, very difficult question to answer, but that's kind of, yeah, that's the best I've got. And then the final question was talking about the album art. What do I think of the album art? And here it is. Of course, there was another part of that question. Do you think there's any meaning behind it? So yeah, great question. And yeah, first of all, talk about what I think about it. I think it's a great photograph. I think sums up the album very nicely, works very well with the songs on the album. Dylan's got a very stern look on his face, for sure. I've got the man there behind him with the camera, I guess kind of symbolizing the media attention Dylan was getting at that time. And then of course he's got his sunglasses in his hand, and wearing a top with a motorbike on it. And I guess there are people out there that don't believe there was a motorcycle accident in 1966. I'm not one of them. I know there are people out there that believe that. And I guess people might link the two, Dylan wearing a top with a motorbike on it, and then mysterious motorcycle accident just a few months later. But to be honest, I don't think there's any connection between the two. That's really all I can say about the artwork. I think it is very nice to see such a high clarity photograph of Dylan in the mid-60s, because we're so used to seeing black and white photos of him in the 60s and of all of the artists in the 60s. So it's great to see such a high-res photo, and just think the artwork works well with the songs, and says a lot about the album as well, and says a lot about his state of mind at this very crucial time in his career. So that's my response wrapped up. Pretty monstrous response. I've blabbered on here, I think, for best part of 25 minutes, so I better pack it in. Another great thread. I've enjoyed replying to it, and these have worked out really well. Well, for me personally, I've really enjoyed talking about these classic albums, and would like to do another one pretty soon if I can. I have to have a little think about that, which one I pick. But yeah, really enjoyed responding to this, and thanks for putting it up, Sam. It was another great choice, and that's all I got, guys. Thanks.